Excellent, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. So I think everyone should be able to hopefully see my screen right now, which is the first page of the invitation to bid. This is the pre-bid meeting, the optional pre-bid meeting for Locksmith Services for the Department of City Development. In attendance right now is myself, and I am Scott Stange. I'm the Procurement and Compliance Manager for the Department of City Development. Also in attendance is Cindy Wright-Smith, who is in charge of essentially property management for City in-rem properties for DCD. Also Deborah McCollum-Gathing, who is the disposition manager for Department of City Development of in-rem properties. Roxanne Schumacher, who is part of DCD purchasing, and Forrest Elliott, who is the master of the controls for us today. So the Department of City Development is the department within the city of Milwaukee that is in charge of all of the city's in-rem properties. In-rem properties are properties in which the previous owner has failed to pay the property taxes over a certain amount of time, and as a result, the city has taken title to those properties. And the Department of City Development is responsible for essentially being the landlord of those properties. And one of the services that is often needed is Locksmith Services. So just going to hit a few high notes here real quick in terms of the dates. This is an invitation to bid. This will require bids to be emailed to DCD purchasing at milwaukee.gov. That's on the first page of the bid. And those bids are due no later than February 15th, 2021 at 11 a.m. I recommend trying that you plan ahead and scan and email that bid a little earlier than 10:59 because of all the technical glitches that might happen. So plan accordingly. Today is the optional pre-bid meeting. And the next date that's important is questions. So in addition to any questions that we would entertain after my presentation, we also would allow for any email questions that might come up afterwards. Those can be emailed to me. My email address is on the screen, sstang@milwaukee.gov. And the deadline for questions is tomorrow, February 5th, end of day, which for us is 4:45 Central Standard Time. And then on Monday, February 8th, by the end of the day, we will post an addendum with any questions and answers, and also include a link to this this pre-bid meeting. The bid itself can be found on the DCD website for bids, which is, I'm circling that right here. It's cityofmilwaukee.gov/DCD/RFPS. And when you appear on that screen, there will be official notice 57915, Locksmith Services, and you'll click on that link, and then this document that is on the screen will appear at that time. So the first page that I want to focus on is the bid submittal checklist. So all of the documents listed here must be submitted by email, again, to DCD purchasing at milwaukee.gov, no later than February 15th at 11 a.m. And I'm going to go through the items here on the checklist. And then we can talk about the unit prices and the formula. that's needed, and then just briefly go through the scope of services. So the documents that you're going to need to submit with your bid is the invitation to bid form with all of your unit prices and the base bid total sum, which is based off of a formula that you input unit prices in, and that formula kicks out a final base bid total sum. The signature page, that will require your signature, a signed addendum. So presuming there will be an addendum, because we're going to entertain questions and answers, there will be an addendum. It'll be posted at the DCD website for bids, which again is this website right here, milwaukee.gov, DCD RFPs. So you will need to go to that website, and you will need to print off the addendum and sign it and include it with your bid. Also, there's a document that is called an affidavit of non-collusion that will need to be printed out, signed, and notarized. And then bid security in the amount of $500. So for this bid, when you submit your bid, you'll need to submit a copy of this bid security. This can be in a form of a cashier's check, or a certified money order, or in this form, or in this bid document, there is what's called a bid bond. If you are going to meet with your surety company to issue a bid bond, it would have to be in the amount of $500. And then a scanned copy of the bid bond would need to be submitted with your bid. After the bids are open and reviewed, the bid surety from the lowest apparent low bidder would need to be mailed to DCD. The bid security is our assurance that the company that submits the low bid is going to follow through with signing the contract and entering into the contract. Forrest, you see that people are waiting in the lobby?
Yep, I just admitted them.
Sweet. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we are going through the bid documents here. This is the bid submittal checklist. I'm going to be going through these documents in a little more detail, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. So this bid also includes 2 programs that the city has for purchasing. It'll be up to your understanding of those programs to determine whether or not they're applicable. If you believe that they're applicable, there are documents that will need to be filled out and submitted with your bid. One is called the Socially Responsible Contractor, also known as SRC, and the other is the Local Business Enterprise Network. Those will be up to you to determine if those apply to your company. Okay, so the invitation to bid form is on pages 4 to 6 in the bid document. This is the first page of the form. You will indicate the name of your company and the location. And then if you have any subcontractors that you would be using, you would list them here. This is the invitation to bid form where the unit prices are listed. This is the base bid total sum. So the base bid total sum will be the basis of the award of the contract. It has a formula. This is the formula, and it includes all of the unit prices listed below. So when you compute your base bid total sum, it will need to be based off of this formula. And there's a table later on in the specifications that we'll go through that also lays out an example of how to calculate the base bid total sum based off of that formula. There are the unit prices. These are the unit prices that the work will be paid that the contractor will be paid will be based off of these unit price amounts. They are specifically the work that would be asked of you as the locksmith contractor in the performance of the work under the contract. There are 15 total unit prices. You will need to fill out a dollar amount for each one of them. And then again, use those unit prices to compute your base bid total sum based off of this formula. The next document in the checklist is the signature page. So the signature page is listed on page 9 of the bid document. This will require you to fill out, again, the information of your company. You will need to have it signed, and it will need, the person that signs will have to indicate their official capacity, and then you date it and whether or not you're an SPE subcon or a contractor. The next form that will need to be filled out.
All right, I'm in the middle of a Zoom meeting here. I'll help you out answer this.
So the next document that would need to be filled out and submitted with the bid is what's referred to as the affidavit of non-collusion. This is just a document essentially affirming that you have not colluded with any other companies to submit the pricing. This needs to be filled out, signed, and notarized and submitted with your bid. And then bid security, we talked briefly about that. That would be in the amount of $500. A copy of that would need to be submitted with the bid. If you choose to work with your surety company to have the bid security be in the form of a bid bond, then the bid bond document, I'm gonna zip to the end here. The bid bond document is back here at it's the last 2 pages of the whole bid. So this is the bid bond form that you would need to present to your surety company, and it would need to be filled out and submitted with your bid. And then that would act as your bid surety. So those are the documents that are on the bid checklist. The bid checklist again is on page 3 of the bid document. And just before you submit the bid, make sure you have all of these documents in here. If you don't, failing to submit any one of the documents will result in your bid being rejected. Okay, so now I'm going to jump to the bid specs. So the bid specs start on page 22 of the bid document. The bid specs give a little bit more description of what the unit prices will be. And there are a couple, the majority of the unit prices are services. There are a few unit prices that deal with materials and hardware. And then this is the page that I was telling you about that has the table of an example of how to, fill in your unit prices and determine what your base bid total sum is. These prices that are on here are for example purposes only. These aren't any indication of what we expect one way or another. This is just for the fact of plugging in numbers to show how the formula works. You would indicate your unit price for each one of the unit prices. Some of those unit prices have a multiplier, and so you would have to calculate that accordingly. And then you would have the total of those unit prices, and then there's what's called the multiplier. So the multiplier represents approximately what we consider in the city's inventory of occupied properties. That multiplier ebbs and flows. The city is always in the process of trying to sell tax foreclosed properties to put them back into private hands. At the same time, 3 to 4 times a year, the city will take lists of properties, up to 200 properties for each list. And of those properties, a certain number would be occupied and would need potential locksmith services. And then there are other properties that would be part of the inspection services or the locksmith services that would be provided during inspections as detailed in unit price 2. So when you're filling out your bid, I suggest that you go to this page and specifically use this as a guide. Obviously not these numbers, because like I said, these are for example purposes only. But in an effort to make sure that you fill out the bid form correctly and you factor in the multiplier for the unit prices, and then you also factor in the multiplier for the number of properties. So that would be very important to take into consideration when you're filling out your bid documents. And then the next thing I'm going to jump to is the scope. So the scope of work is on page 33 of the bid, and this kind of lays out the types of things that we would expect from the locksmith service in providing the work under this contract. It kind of goes through what's all going to be included on the unit prices. And then there are some basic expectations in terms of the execution of the work, cleanup at the site after the work is completed. So there are two things in the unit prices that I wanted to go over with you specifically, just so everyone is clear. Is unit price 1 and unit price 2. So as the locksmith contractor, well, this bid is so the city, after this, sorry, a little tongue tie. Well, no, I can't even say that. So the city currently has a contract for a locksmith service. This bid and subsequent contract is for a second locksmith contractor. As noted in the beginning of this presentation, the city has quite a large inventory, and there are needs often at different ends of the city, at different properties. And so it's important for the city to have enough contractors to meet the needs of the tenants. So this would be a contract for a second locksmith services. The city reserves the right to assign the work accordingly that best meets the needs of the city between the two contractors as the work comes up. So locksmith services will be provided typically in one of two ways. One is going to be through a service call. So this would be a situation where a tenant of one of the city's in-rem properties has a locksmith need, and they will call Cindy and inform them that locksmith services are needed at the property. And then Cindy will dispatch a work order to the locksmith contractor and have them go out to the property to perform the proper services that are needed. So unit price 1 would essentially be what your hourly rate for that service call is, and that is to include mileage in the service call. And then in addition to unit price 1, when you would invoice for work on that service call, you would have unit price 1 plus whatever specific locksmith services you provided at the property under that work order, and those would be outlined in unit prices 3 through 15. The second situation where you would be doing work, locksmith services for the city of Milwaukee, is during inspections. So earlier I explained how the city takes title to these properties. They're done in mass lists. There are roughly 4 to 5 lists each, or I should say 3 to 4 lists each year. The number of lists varies. And on each list, there could be upwards of 200 properties per list. So when the city takes title to the properties, they will provide DCD and Cindy and Deborah a list. And then each one of those properties will need to be inspected by DCD staff. And so the locksmith will need to be available to do inspections with DCD staff. So what that means is Cindy will contact the locksmith contractor, inform them of the days that they are needed for these inspections to take place. there are roughly 4 to 5 properties that are inspected at one time, and they typically happen from around 9 to noon. And they will start at the first property, and then after the work is done at the first property, then everyone will go to the second property together, the third property together, and so on until all the properties have been inspected for that day. DCD, Cindy and or Deborah will coordinate with the contractor so that there's enough lead time to make sure that the contractor has a technician available for the time frame needed. So the technician will need to be there at the appropriate time at the beginning of the first inspection, and then stay with the team, the DCD team, through the end of the inspection of the final property. And like I said, that's roughly about 4 to 5 properties at a time. And it usually takes, 3 hours, maybe a little bit more, depending on what actually is all needed at each property. So under the work that's performed under the inspections is done under unit price 2. So unit price 2 would be the hourly rate for the time that the technician is at the inspections. So starting at the first inspection at the first property, all the way till when they clock out at the end of the last inspection for the day. And in addition to that hourly rate, then each property would have Locksmith Services as detailed under unit prices 3 through 15. So the invoice would detail which unit prices were done at which property during the morning of those inspections. So those are the two main ways that work will be distributed to the contractor. Again, one is through work order type of situations where we get specific calls from tenants. And the second is during the property inspections as outlined in unit price 2. So with that, I'm gonna invite Cindy and or Deborah to chime in if they think there's anything that I missed.
I think you did a really good job explaining unit price number 2. The only thing I would add is that, again, we all are together. So if the locksmith is not needed for that particular property that we're doing an inspection on, we just ask that they at least sit in the car and wait for us outside. Not to leave the premises, just to sit outside and wait for us until we're done with the inspections. Generally, our inspections are about 20 minutes. With the COVID, they're taking a little bit longer because we have to make sure we have social distancing and so on and so forth. But other than that, I think you did a great job explaining price number 2. Okay,
thank you. And and I will add, Cindy had said we, and so what that means is that at each inspection will be a staff member from DCD. That'll be either Cindy or one of her staff. And then there is a representative from the Department of Neighborhood Services that's there as well. And then in addition to those two people would be your locksmith technician. So Deborah, anything that you would want to add?
No, again, Scott, you did an excellent job, and Cindy's input is correct. So
okay, awesome. Okay, so with that, I'll open it up to questions. I think there are 2 additional people here, 2 contractors, Eric, and then I missed the name of the person that came in second. So Eric, and I'm sorry, I didn't write your name down, so my apologies. But if you have any questions about the presentation or the bid documents, now would be the time to ask them. And if you don't have any questions at this time and something comes up and you want to ask it, then you would just email it to me, and just make sure that you email me before 4:45 tomorrow. And my email is in the bid bid documents, I'm gonna just zip up to the top page here. Or one of the top pages. So my email address is right here. And questions are due by tomorrow by 4:45. So with that, if there are any questions, we can take those at this time.
Yeah, this is Forrest Elliott with DCD for the two people that are on the call. Oh, I'm hearing somebody's voice. Go ahead and ask your question. I was just going to explain how to unmute yourself, but it sounds like you did.
My name is Delonda Jones, and I had a question. So during the inspection, would our technicians be doing whatever services are needed at that point during the inspection, or would they be coming back to do them?
So I can go ahead and answer that. At the time of the inspection, we want them to do the work. So for the most part, probably 95% of the time, they would do the work while we're there doing our inspection, which is usually just on vacant properties, changing the locks, or if the tenant has an issue with the lock, they may need to change the lock or do some other kind of locksmith duties. But for the most part, all of the work should be done while we're there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it is possible that depending on how fast your technician is, the locksmith technician may finish up before Cindy and the DNS representative are done with their inspection of the property. And if that is the case, then the locksmith technician will just need to hang tight in the company vehicle until DCD and DNS are done with the inspection, and then all three of them would then move on to the next property. So the locksmith technician would need to stay with the team all the way through the end of the last inspection.
This is Forrest Elliott again with DCD. I'll also add that you can also type your question into the chat box. If you click at the top, there's a conversation box. You can also type it in there if that's easier.
Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions, then I think we'll just wrap it up. Again, if something comes up and you think of a question a little later, by all means, you can shoot it to me in an email. And again, this is my email address right here. And then any questions and answers will be put in an addendum along with a link to this presentation. That addendum will be posted on the DCD website, which is right here. That'll get posted on Monday. And just going back to the checklist here, I just want to revisit this one last time. Please familiarize yourself with all of the documents on this checklist because these will need to be submitted with your bid. If you miss any one of them, it would be cause for bid rejection. So just make sure that you submit all that. There will be an addendum, so you'll need to go to the DCD website, print that addendum out, and submit that with your bid. Please don't forget to do that. It would be a shame to have your bid be rejected because the addendum was not included. So again, that'll get posted sometime on Monday. You'll need to go print out the addendum, sign it, and submit it with your bid. So, and then one last time around, this website right here is where you can find the bid documents and the addendum. And I will, I'm going to unshare my screen here for a second, and then I'm going to share the screen that has, I thought I was going to be able to share the screen of our bid page and I can't figure out how to do that. But so this document, this webpage right here is where you'll be able to find the bid document that's on the screen right now and the addendum. So with that, again, I thank everyone for attending, and good luck on the bids. The bids are due next on February 15th at 11 a.m. Thank you all, and have a good day.
Thank you for coming. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.